On Hawaii's island of Oahu, construction crews discovered a boulder obstructing their project's path. Since heiaus or temples might be found along their way, the crew moved the massive rock instead of destroying it, in case the obstacle was a sacred item. The crew spent most of the day moving the boulder and looked forward to resuming their work tomorrow. However, the following day, the massive boulder was in their path as it was the previous day. That was an incident construction crews faced while building the H3 highway. And this is Legends from the Pacific. Aloha, and thank you for joining us. This is Legends from the Pacific, episode 58, Hawaii's H3 Highway. I am Kamuala Kaneshiro, a native Hawaiian professional writer, speaker, and Comic-Con panelist with extensive film and television experience. I study mythology, I've encountered unusual things, and I'm a geek. You can support us by getting 2 or 3 of your friends to listen to our show. This simple request goes a long way in helping us grow our show. Our book's Kickstarter was funded in 24 hours, and our first stretch goal was unlocked, which means if we unlock our next goal, backers will receive a free copy of our audiobook done by a professional actor. Make sure you back us now before everything ends on June 1st. Links can be found on our website and in our show notes. So back our Kickstarter today. Later in this episode, your featured song, Hawaiian Word, and how crews dealt with the boulder in our opening story. I like to use our Hawaiian episodes to give you a glimpse of what living in Hawaii is like. Also, while H3 is a highway, many locals refer to H3 as well as H2 and H1 as freeways, since it's the closest thing we have to a freeway, even though these congested roads seem like parking lots. So I apologize if I refer to H3 as a freeway instead of a highway. H3 was proposed in 1960 to link Pearl Harbor with Kaneohe's Marine Corps Base, which was known as Marine Corps Air Station Kaneohe Bay, which was originally Naval Air Station Kaneohe Bay. As a side note, Kaneohe Bay is called K-Bay, and the Marine Corps base was attacked on December 7th, 1941, just 9 minutes before Pearl Harbor. The H3 project faced massive protests because it was threatening to destroy a part of Oahu's natural beauty, along with disrupting native birds, including the Hawaiian owl, or pue'o, which is my spiritual animal, or aumakua. The project was also cutting through the iconic Ko'olau mountain range and may disrupt sacred grounds. As a side note, practically all of Hawaii's construction projects discover ancient remains and artifacts. After many stalls, H3 construction began over 20 years later in the late 80s. Then, H3 was opened in December 1997. As construction neared its end, I remember locals saying they'd never use H3 because they felt spirits would haunt motorists for traversing sacred grounds. I even heard friends say that H3's electrical wiring would electrocute or cook motorists alive. But something that concerned everyone was the possibility that sections of H3 would collapse. You see, H3 is elevated, and what may look like bushes or trees along the side are actually tops of 100-foot trees. following is the Legends from the Pacific original story and is based on collected testimony. The moon ducked behind clouds as a woman drove along H3. Her long hours were taxing, and she looked forward to going to sleep. As the hypnotizing road's melodic rhythms weighed down her eyelids, light flashed in her rear-view mirror. The light was high beams from a car barreling down behind her. Flushed with embarrassment for falling asleep at the wheel, the woman adjusted her car from drifting into the left lane. However, her car was perfectly in the right lane. She slowed, focused on the road ahead, and hoped the car would go around her. High beams filled her rearview mirror as the car behind her flashed its high beams again. The woman slowed and focused on the car pursuing her instead of the road. The pursuing car revved up and drifted into the left lane to pass her. The vehicle's headlights reached the woman's door, but the vehicle slowed and slipped back behind her car. The confused woman studied the car. Blue lights erupted from it. Surprise became dread as she realized her pursuer was a police car. The woman pulled over. A figure exited the police vehicle and approached. The woman wondered why she was pulled over. She wasn't speeding. Light blinded her as the figure shined a flashlight into her face. "I'm sorry, officer. What did I do wrong?" The officer lowered his blinding light and nodded. "Ma'am, I need to ask you to please control your kids from jumping up and down in the back seat. I flashed my lights, hoping you'd settle them, but they became more rambunctious when I went to pass you. They shouldn't be so active in a moving vehicle." The woman tilted her head. "But, officer, I don't have any children." The officer raised his flashlight, and its beam filled the empty back seat. Don't forget to claim your free, unaired bonus episode, Hawaii's Faceless Ghost, Mujina, by joining our email list. Links can be found on our website or in our show notes. While you're there, please send me your unusual Pacific encounters via our feedback link, so I may share your experiences on future episodes. Today, H3 Highway is considered a vital component in Hawaii's ever-growing gridlocked roads. Everyone admires H3's beauty, which causes motorists to stop and take pictures. Dear listener, please do not stop on H3 and take pictures. The H3 Ko'olau Mountain Station reminds me of something you'd see from Jurassic Park. Also, several TV shows and films like Battleship have filmed on H3. So, recap. H3 took 37 years to make and stretches just over 15 miles. Its final cost? $1.3 billion, or about $80 million per mile, making it the most expensive highway ever built. I recommend driving along it while in Hawaii, but again, please don't stop for pictures. Locals used to joke that this was Hawaii's biggest pork barrel project until 2011, when construction began on the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. The rail's initial cost was $400 million, but has since skyrocketed to about $13 billion. $400 million to $13 billion. That's a lot of taxpayer money. And as of this recording, it's been almost 10 years. The rail has yet to open phase 1 of its service, and we're sure the $13 billion isn't going to be the rail's final cost. But that's a story for another time. As for the boulder in our opening story, It is believed crews tried moving the boulder again, but it went back to where it was. A kahuna was brought in who blessed the area and asked the boulder if it would mind moving. The crews moved the boulder, and it remained where they placed it. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating, write a review, subscribe, follow us, and share Legends from the Pacific with your friends and family. I'd really appreciate it. A big mahalo nui loa to our Patreon supporter, Cassie. You too can join Cassie and others by becoming a Legends from the Pacific Patreon supporter. Financially speaking, I put all of our funding back into our show, which means I've yet to pay myself. Speaking of funding, remember to back our book's Kickstarter campaign before June 1st and help us unlock our second reward, a free audiobook, which will be done by professional voiceover actors. The more funding we get, the better actors we can hire. So back our Kickstarter today. Our theme song is Mystery by Tavana, courtesy of High Sessions. Sound effects are by Sound Effects Factory. Our music coordinator is Matt Duffy, aka DJ TripleBypass. Links and show notes can be found on our website, legendsfromthepacific.com, including a link to your featured song, which is La Ie Kawai by Hoku Zudermeister, courtesy of High Sessions. Legends from the Pacific was written, produced, and edited by me, Kamuela Kaneshiro. I also wrote our original stories. Your featured Hawaiian word is ala. Ala means road or path. An example of ala is, it's easier traveling on the ala instead of going through rough terrain. Once again, ala means road or path. Thank you once again for listening. Mahalo and a hui ho.